decree and declare that you and you alone would get the glory for what is done and said in here tonight, and that the Bahamian people would ultimately be the beneficiaries of everything that is discussed that is positive. And so in the name of the God of Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham, we say amen.
Amen. Thank you for that powerful prayer. And now we are going to have the singing of our national anthem. I need to encourage everybody as the national anthem is being sung to sing along, because the national anthem was never meant to be sung alone. It was meant to be sung by every Bahamian every time that the national anthem is played. So I encourage everyone, let's sing, lift up our heads proudly and sing our national anthem of the Bahamas. I don't know if you're like me, and I believe that every Bahamian feels the same way I do, that every time I hear the national anthem, I feel proud to be a Bahamian. And I, I believe that the words of that song is being realized in our lifetime, that there is indeed a unity that is taking place across this country, where people realize that it's time that we become inheritors of the Bahama land. Our national anthem speaks loud and clear about the Bahama land. This Bahama land belongs to Bahamians. And it's time that we become the inheritors that the preamble of our Constitution declares that we are the inheritors of these family of islands. I'm just one of the co-hosts of this event tonight. I'm Pastor Eddie Victor, and along with my wife, Pastor Margot Victor, and Kirk Russell. We are your hosts tonight. And for those of you who have been following our coalition, we have been actively working for years here in Grand Bahama to bring greater awareness and to bring change. In particularly, one of our main campaigns is the campaign which we still wage now, is to lower the cost of electricity across this country. But tonight, our focus is on national resources, or natural resources, sorry. There is a movement that has already begun. Our objective here tonight is to bring greater awareness and the need for Bahamians to unite across this archipelago so that we can not only see significant changes in our country's economic and social condition, but to bring our country to a place where every Bahamian will have the opportunity to be empowered economically in their own country. And so we believe that tonight is important. Now we are all, many of us that are participating here tonight, there are many others that have been heralding the cry that we need to focus on our national resources. But I have to say this, that right now, there is a movement that has already begun. And this movement, I believe, when Bahamians across this country not only become aware, but participate and unite together, we will become our national anthem. We will march on together in a united manner and bring the change to our country that needs to take place. Pastor Margie, you want to say anything at this point?
Well, good evening, Bahamas. Good evening, co-panelists. Tonight, first let me introduce myself. My name is Margot Victor. I am fourth generation Grand Bahamian and a nationalist. I love God, I love people, and I love this country, the Bahamas. When I returned home from university in 1987, I came back to the Bahamas because there was something very impressionable that took place in my life in 1973. I was 10 years old. And I remember the Union Jack coming down and the Bahamian flag being raised to the top of the pole. And I grasped a hold of the vision of leaders in that day, that the Bahamas was to be a prosperous nation and Bahamians would live well. And so tonight I joined forces with other leaders throughout this nation, believing because of what God has said in his word and because he's the creator of all things, the earth and everything in it, that natural resources belong to the people, not to one group, not to one family, but to the people of that nation. And I believe that as a people, we must find a way for natural resources to be a blessing for the development of this nation. And so I came back home to the Bahamas because I believe we can make this country great. Thank you for allowing us to be here and to share with you what we believe God has in store for us.
I just got to let everyone know this. My wife said that she is fourth generation Grand Bahamian. So you know what that means? That when I married my wife, I married most of Grand Bahama. They are not my family. All right. And Kurt, you may be my family. I don't know now because
Maybe.
I married into this fourth generation Grand Bahamian. Um, and so God has blessed me with a wonderful wife. But Kurt,
Yes.
um,
Yes,
uh,
sir.
give you an opportunity now to just comment and bring some remarks.
Well, thank you, Pastor Victor. Thank you, Pastor Margo. And good night, Bahamas. Good night to all of our esteemed panelists and our speakers, those who will come through tonight and try their best to enlighten this Bahamas as to where we should go, where we should be headed, and what we ought to do. Pastor Victor, one of the first things I want to say is that, you know, COVID, this is this movement, the frenzy that is happening in the Bahamas today as it relates to natural resources, even though these movements have been around for some time, uh, COVID-19 and the lockdowns and not being able to move about have given Bahamians the opportunity
Yes.
to
Yes.
look deep into this country, to look at what is going right, look at some of the mistakes that are happening, take the time to do investigations, to do researches, and to really come up with something that is substantive, some things that has some foundation and some traction. And and one of the things, Pastor, what I really want us to focus on as a group, not only the coalition of concerned citizens, but all stakeholders in this country. Uh, yes, we're talking about the natural resources, but I believe that in the talks, Pastor, with the natural resources, we have to begin a serious discussion and demand that the government enact the Freedom of Information Act,
Yes.
because we having a lot of you say and I say, and it is so difficult to find information that belongs to the people. In
That's
in
true.
in 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 2017, this is the gazetted version of the Freedom of Information Act. It's already at the gazetted stage. This the government has to make the Freedom of Information Act a priority if
Yes.
we are going to successfully manage our resources. We have to be able to put these resources, put some of these tasks in the hands of our university students, in the hands of our
Yes.
universities, so
Yes.
so they can begin to tally information, do the researches,
Yes.
make sure that the lawyers in training could do the researches, those in
That's
the
right.
marine life and what's not could do the researches. But how are we going to be successful if we don't even have a Freedom of Information Act? This country is in need of an ombudsman board. This,
Mm.
this, this, we need an ombudsman board where citizens can bring complaints, bring concerns, and it is dealt with and adjudicated in the right manner that is fair. We need to be able to hold our politicians, our political leaders, our social leaders, our economic leaders, our taskmasters, so to speak. We need to be able to hold these people feet to the
Accountable.
fire publicly. And so it is important that the University of the Bahamas has an ombudsman board. How come the university has one and the rest of the people don't have an ombudsman board? When we talk about, as we go on tonight, I hope that some of our speakers touch touch things like the mangroves in the Bahamas. We have had several advocates throughout, especially in Andres, speaking on mangroves. We basically make about $50 million a year from the industry associated with mangoes, fly fishing, and all of these kind of work, fishing and all of this. That's an industry that we could probably 10 times in a year. We should be able to do at least 500 million and not 50 million. We need to take a close look at the Atlantic Underseas Test and Evaluation Center, or TEC, down in Andros, right? That's a $1 trillion operation. The Bahamas receive a measly $11 million a year out of that deal. We need to revisit that, right? We need to look at what are we doing in offshore banking. We need to look at sand and aragonite and lime. It's a story, and when you look at what Vaughn Miller presented in the House of Assembly, you're talking about $5 billion in aggregates, lime, aragonite, sand coming out of Grand Bahama in 1 year, right? And to date, no one has challenged what Mr. Miller, what MP Miller has presented to the House. So we have to look at it. Today, and all through this Bahamas, we're talking about oil drilling. But me, Pastor Margo, I am not able to speak to it in a manner that I would like. Why? Because the government has yet to dialogue with the Bahamian people in a manner that makes sense about the oil drilling. Personally, and this is not a position that we have agreed upon in the coalition or in the other hat that I wear in the trade union movement. This is Craig Russell's personal position. I do not agree with oil drilling or oil exploration in the Bahamas. And I tell you why. We are the #1 tourist destination, tourist operation center in the world, right? Why would we in this country take a chance with destroying something that we have? And I say this, Pastor Victor, the Bahamas has not tapped in to no more than about 10 to 15% of the tourist market. We have yet to get into manufacturing. We talking about diversifying the economy, but let's diversify tourism. Let us produce the tuna. Let us produce enough food to supply the industry. Let us produce. You telling me now, Pastor Eddie, from 1973, the only soda we could produce in this country is Gombay Punch? We can't produce sodas. We can't produce juices. We can't produce towels, paper products, napkins, toothpicks, whatever. We can't produce these things. Come on, man. There is billions of dollars in the tourism industry that we have not tapped in. Why should we take a chance and destroy our environment with oil drilling on an industry that is now becoming a dinosaur, right? Now, if we were talking about natural gases, if we were talking about renewable energy, now we going somewhere. And I want to end my little talk tonight, Pastor Eddie, as we go on human resources. That is a natural resource. That is the most important natural resource in this country. Human resources. And I say this, man, when you look in this country, prior to COVID-19, we had 30,000 work permits issued and active in this country. Today, after COVID-19, when we got more than 60,000 Bahamians sitting home unemployed, we still have 30,000 work permits out there. We have not recalled one single work permit in this country. When you look in Grand Bahama, man, and you look in the industrial park, Bahamians are basically what you call baseless workers, casual workers, contractual workers in these multi-billion-dollar companies. I'm talking about the Freeport Container Port, the shipyard, Bradford Marine, you name them, Borco. It is a crying shame that we have all this equity in Grand Bahama, all of this equity. However, Bahamians in Grand Bahama are not feeling none of the financial gains and the financial benefit that is in this island. I had a son come from Oklahoma a few weeks ago. We drove around Freeport. I just was driving and just talking and just looking myself to where a young man or a young woman coming back from college could find a decent job on this island. It is almost impossible, Pastor Margo.
Yes, I agree.
It is almost impossible. And so as we talk about natural resources, let us not forget the human resources, which is our most valuable assets. And so, Pastor, I know we have a lot of great speakers. You asked me to say a few words, and
Yeah.
so I am comfortable with that. And as we go on, we'll talk a little bit more. So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Bahamas, and let's get everybody charged up and ready to go to stand up, to stand up. The Constitution of the Bahamas, the preamble, tell us that we are the owners of this land. We are the inheritors of this land. And so it is important for us to unite in our effort and to ensure that we are able to make the wealth in this Commonwealth a little bit more common. So thank you, Pastor Victor.
Wonderful. Kirk Russell, he is also one of our executives with the Coalition of Concerned Citizens. One of the things I love about Kirk is never short for words. And he studies and he has in-depth knowledge. And he's
passionate about it.
And he's passionate, yes. He's very passionate about his country and making a difference in the lives of people, making an impact.
Yeah.
That's why we work together so wonderfully, and we thank God for him. Right. Well, we want to encourage everyone that is listening to us tonight to take the next several minutes and share this live stream. Share it with your friends, share it in your groups. Throughout the various presentations you're going to hear, I want you to get on your phone and start sharing. I should have said that a little earlier, but I'm going to emphasize it now before we go forward. Share with as much people and the groups you're in as possible. You can even copy the link and share it on WhatsApp. And so I just encourage you to go ahead and do that. Now tonight, we got amazing speakers tonight. We're gonna hear briefly from Bishop Delton Fernanda, and we're gonna hear from Pastor Conrad Jones, who is actually in place for Reverend Dr. Patrick Paul, who had a recent death in his family, and the family is really going through a hard time. So I ask you to pray for Reverend Dr. Patrick Paul and his wife Charlene Paul, and the Paul family as they go through this very difficult time in their family. This is the fourth family member to pass away in this year of 2020. And so it's very difficult for the family right now. So lift them up in prayer. We're going to also hear from Vaughn Miller, the Member of Parliament for Golden Isles, a champion in the Parliament. And we're going to hear from Lincoln Bain, who is indeed a champion for this season. And yes. Coalition of Concerned Citizens is so delighted to have been able to partner with Bahamian Evolution as they lead this movement to bring changes in our country when it comes to natural resources and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So we are now going to have a video remarks from Bishop Delton Fernanda. He could not be here tonight because there was a pre-planned special service tonight, which he had to attend. And because we had some mix-up with the dates, he said he'd make sure and do a video just to bring some remarks. Bishop Delton Fernanda, he is the pastor of New Destiny Baptist Cathedral, and he's also the president of the Bahamas Christian Council. So the next voice you will hear will be Bishop Delton Fernanda.
My brothers and sisters of the Bahamas, we're at a place that, as a country, speaking personally, I am Bishop Fernanda, pastor of New Destiny Baptist Cathedral. speaking personally, we're at a place where we need to evaluate our natural resources. Quite frankly, we need an audit of all natural resources. We need to know what's there, what are they worth, what is the tonnage, what is the value, so that we can have the real account of where we're at as a nation. And then we're at a different place with the education and preparation level of our people. And then we go out to the world market and we realize to scale what we have is worth. The resources that God has allowed to be here in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas are for the people of the Bahamas. We've seen this happen all around the world, that people take advantage of those who do not know better. And because we know better, we're expected to do better. And so it's a time in our development as a nation when we must assess where we're at. Whatever the natural resource is, we've seen this played out in our comrades throughout the diaspora. That people of our hue and of our nature have been taken advantage of because we did not know how to move forward and how to really maximize what God has given us. I believe tied to our natural resources is the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It can take on many forms and many platforms. President Paul is on this time of sharing today, and he will talk about what we're doing as the Christian Council. But I believe that when we develop the natural platform for us to have this investment fund, that we ought to take those funds and invest in ourselves. And then Bahamians should be the receivers of the rewards. And so when we need solar plants, we should take our Sovereign Wealth Fund and invest in those solar plants, and then we receive the dividends as the people. I believe the time has come for someone to be concerned about us. I believe the time has come and God is calling on us to pay particular attention to where we are going and what we are doing. And I believe as a preacher proclaimer that my strategy might not be the same as some who are on this call with me and who on this time is sharing with me, but make no mistake that our eyes are open, our minds are clear, and we're going to do what we can to empower the people that God has placed in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I ask that you pray for me as I pray for you. God bless you.
Thank you, Bishop Delton Fernanda. I've had the pleasure of working with Bishop Fernanda from the time that he was installed as president of the Bahamas Christian Council. We've worked on several national economic social projects. And I can tell you, because I've worked with him personally, his heart is really with this movement when it comes to this whole conversation and movement of natural resources and sovereign wealth fund. And so,
Pastor Victor.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say that Pastor Fernanda has also been very accommodating and very, very instrumental in the conversation about improving this economy with the trade union movement. And so you are 100% right. He is passionate about moving this country forward in a positive manner, especially as it relates to economics and the economy and the welfare of the people of this country. And so you are 100% correct.
That is so. And tonight I just want to really encourage every one of you to really listen to what our presenters have to say, and also again, share with as many people as possible this live stream, and encourage people to come and join in on this discussion and hear from the hearts of persons who are passionately engaged in this movement when it comes to natural resources. Now, coming next to speak, and I mentioned earlier that our speaker is actually speaking in place of Reverend Dr. Patrick Paul. He is the chairperson of the board of directors of the Bahamas Christian Council Initiative, the church commercial farming group, and this coming together of churches across the Bahamas to unite together. You see, we are now in this movement of natural resources. We have to remember that God gave us this land, and this land can produce for us. And so one of the things that conversation that also needs to be have here is that we need to talk about how can we produce more produce for our citizens in our country, where we would have less and less dependency on importing produce, but also to have food security. We have to remember that with this pandemic, we actually were faced with this whole question of food security. And there was concern about the supply chain across the world, especially the Bahamas. Would there be enough food coming into the country to deal with these lockdowns and all of these measures that were taken to combat the coronavirus pandemic? And so we are so proud today to have Pastor Conrad Jones. Now he is the chairman of the technical committee, and they strategize and they advise the board of directors. Now I need to mention this: in the church commercial farming group are the Assemblies of God, the Highway Church of God, Bahamas Faith Ministry, Bahama Harvest, Church of God of Prophecy, the Baptist Convention, and many other ministries have joined together to begin commercial farming in the Bahamas. And I need to add this, that yes, we can grow food for ourselves, but we can also take agriculture to an export level where we export to other countries. So I just invite you to just welcome tonight Pastor Conrad Jones.
Thank you so much, Pastor Victor, Pastor Margot, and your co-host, Brother Kirk Russell. It's a pleasure to be here to join you as well as all of the other speakers that are here. I've been actually watching on Facebook, and I just kind of been watching the comments come in, and it is amazing at what you're doing here on this particular platform with regards to sensitizing Bahamians towards, like what you're saying, what is ours, and us being able to be accountable for what belongs to us in this country. You know, I was thinking the other day, I see Brother Lincoln Bain on also, and I was thinking the other day, and I looked at my passport and I said to myself, I only have one passport. That's it. That's a Bahamian passport. That's it. So everything that I have, you know, there's no other country that I can run off to and say I'm gonna be a citizen there. I'm a citizen here in the Bahamas. And the beauty of it is, I saw Shanika, somebody put in the chat something that Dr. Miles Monroe said, that the Bahamas, this is the place where God lives, you know. And so we have indeed been a blessed nation. Like you said, I'm here on behalf of our president, the president of the Church Commercial Farming Group, which is Dr. Pat Paul. And so, like you said earlier, I'm just kind of standing in for him because of what's going on right now in his space. I'm going to share just a couple of things with you, kind of to help to sensitize your audience to what we are doing from the agricultural front, the things that we are working on. And one of the things I was thinking about, Lincoln Bain, I called your name because I see it there. One of the things I was thinking about is that a mentor of mine said that you cannot change anything you are unwilling to confront. You know, and I really like that thing. Many times when we try to confront certain things, people get upset at us and they don't realize that change happens. It begins at a conversational stage. and then from us opening up to each other and listening and hearing each side and being able to converse, are we able to now put what is necessary on the table? Because the truth of the matter is no one of us have all the answers. It takes a collaboration of us coming together and being able to put our ideas and our minds together to be able to develop something that will be solid and powerful for us to not only enjoy in our generation, but for our future generations to enjoy. And so I just kind of wanted to start there that, like I said, whatever we are unwilling to confront or go after, then it cannot change. We have to be prepared to start conversations on these matters, whether they're sensitive or not, whether people agree with us or not. We have to be able to do that if we seriously expect to have change. And so I want to start there. I'm going to share my screen if that's possible, and kind of just roll through what I have prepared for you, and then from that standpoint, we can go on from there. There we are. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
All right. So the Church Commercial Farming Group, let me kind of just give you a quick overview as to what it is, so that those persons that's here are able to understand what is it that this church group is trying to do. Okay, so the CCFG is, again, the Church Commercial Farming Group, and it's a combination of different denominations. Denominational heads have come together to create this particular group to do a few things within our nation that we believe that we most definitely can accomplish. One of the things is, in some cases, the church has played small and hide in the background. Well, we're no longer hiding in the background because we realize that it is our kingdom destiny by God to be able to evoke social, mental, spiritual, economic change in our nation, in the place where we live. Let me start here, just kind of give you an overview. The CCFG, or the Church Commercial Farming Group, it comprises, like I said earlier, a conglomerate of recognized denominational churches. Pastor Eddie would have already outlined some of them. And what has happened is we have all agreed to work together as a commercial farming business with, of course, the focus on the cultivation of agricultural produce and products and the manufacturing of related byproducts. And so our aim is really to become the leading commercial farming business brand within the Bahamas, obviously with a hallmark of quality, consistency, and sustainability. So these are some of the goals that we have set for ourselves, and we most definitely believe that we can, and we most definitely will accomplish them. So as you may or may not be aware, I don't know if our audience would have watched it on the news or seen the different clips, but in October of this year, the 29th of October, we had our official launch where the denominational leaders, they came together and they signed a memorandum of understanding that actually launched the Church Commercial Farming Group as a collective group. So they came together and they agreed in principle and on paper for moving forward on this. So what we have been doing in the last few days, weeks, and months is we have been moving forward with engaging ourselves as a church group, okay, in the ongoing national initiative to increase the productivity and the self-sufficiency of our country's agricultural production system. So here's just a quick overview of our project, because I just have a couple of minutes because I know there's a number of other speakers that you're waiting on. But a project overview, our project, the approach that we took for accomplishing this goal of food sustainability is via two distinct but connected project streams right now that we are implementing, that we are working on. And those two streams is, one, the backyard farming, where we feed ourselves individually, and we call it the yard to table program. And then the other side, the commercial side, is the commercial farming aspect, where we grow food to feed others collectively through what we have termed the farm to store program or the Farm to Store initiative. All right, so just a brief background. Why did we start here in choosing this project among many other things that we probably could have done? Well, like Pastor Eddie started to surface, is that during the recent COVID-19 pandemic, that has just kind of touched everybody, pretty much all of us. What the pandemic did is it highlighted that for us to survive as a people, that we've got to understand what our most basic human needs are, and that we've got to first seek to ensure that they are met first. And so we thought about it, and we threw some ideas around. What we recognize is that beyond the supply of power or fuel for our vehicles, beyond having access to all of those things, access to a stable, healthy food supply, we believe, is paramount to the survival of any person, any family, any church, any community, or any nation. So this is the reason why we started to take a deeper look at this project from this particular perspective. We also asked ourselves, why should we get involved? Well, the church, by no small margin, it represents the kingdom of God within the earth, and we are called to make disciples of the nations. And this means for us that our impact and our leadership has got to be seen and it's got to be felt. Further to this, in our assignment, as we minister to the whole man, not just the spiritual aspect of it, we believe that as a church group, that we have access to the largest pool of human capital. I heard Brother Russell speak about the power of human capital in our country, and us not overlooking the contribution that individuals can make individually as well as what we can make collectively. And so we believe that having access to this pool of human capital, that collectively that we could do much good for and indeed within our nation. Again, the next question was, why look at this now? Well, what we have understood is that the Bahamas is in a very precarious position when it comes to the lack of food security. And this has been an ongoing conversation for decades in this country. You know, this is not a new topic. There's been a number of things have been launched or tried in the past to help to deal with this issue of food security. And even the government itself is now concerned about this area. And if you follow what Ministry of Agriculture is trying to do in those different agencies, BAMSI and those other government agencies, we recognize that this is a challenge that we have to be able to figure out to solve for ourselves, because nobody's coming to our country to solve our problems. But it is a challenge because we import over 90% of pretty much the food that we consume. And with the rising import cost, at last we checked, was somewhere over $1 billion per year. What we realize is that this presents an opportunity to transition our people from consumers to producers. And this is extremely important because when you look at some of the most powerful nations, what helps them is the fact that they produce at a higher and a greater level. And so we get the opportunity from this platform to begin to now raise awareness in our people that we become producers, more producers than just simply consumers, and that it's the opportunity to create more entrepreneurship opportunities within our local ecosystem. So while we were studying this, we looked at the household expenditure survey from the Bahamas Department of Statistics, one of the most recent ones. And what it demonstrated was that over 12% of Bahamians have less than $4 per day for food expenditure. And what this means is that our people, that they are therefore experiencing varying levels of food insecurity issues. As you would have seen during the pandemic, with the loss of jobs and people being furloughed and different things happening and people trying to get on food lines, what we recognize is that this gap is probably really growing at a faster rate than we care to really acknowledge, but is growing nonetheless. And so for us, the reality is that, and it's an unfortunate reality, especially in light of post-COVID, the post-COVID environment, but the reality is that many of our citizens, many of our countrymen, many of our next door neighbors, our friends, our parishioners, that they are now finding themselves at the bitter end of this 12% statistics. But we believe that as the Bahamas Church, that we have both the opportunity and we got the capacity to help our people to avoid becoming a statistic and to become successful survivors. This is what we believe. So let me give you a more of a brief overview of the program, and then I'll wrap up. All right, so the two streams, like I mentioned to you before, one is the Yard to Table program, and the other program is the Farm to Store. So our Yard to Table initiative, and we term it Eat What You Grow, Grow What You Eat. That's simple enough. But this initiative really is to engage the families within our churches, within our communities, to really start their own personal backyard food growing projects, and to do this with the view to becoming producers of what they consume. And what we believe is that if we can get 5, 10, 15, 100, 200, 500, 1,500, 5,000 families, 7,000, 10,000 families around this country that's growing the food that they consume, even if it's only in small portions, whether it's lettuce or carrots or beets or whatever else. We believe that that in itself will do two things. We believe it will decrease the food bill in households, and we also believe that that will increase the health in our families, because we get a piece of fruit or something out of the food store, and for the most part, they might have shipped that from California, days or weeks before, pick it when it was young, and it ripened on the way with some nitrogen gas or whatever process they use to do that. And so by the time as we get it here in the food store, the quality is different from you being able to take it from your yard and put it straight on your table. So this is the Yard to Table program side. This is the stream, one stream side of what we are looking at. The second, as we go along, so our short-term plan, okay, is that we have already launched the Yard to Table initiative. One of the things I want you to understand and recognize is these things that I'm talking to you about are not things that we are just sitting, talking and planning. We've already begun making movements and strides on this, because we recognize that unless we take action, results do not show up. And so in order to get the results that we talk about, we've been around people that talk and do nothing. Well, this group is moving from a different stream. And so we have already launched the Yard to Table initiative, in which interested participants, whether through their respective churches or wherever else, they can be provided with starter gardening kits. We started to build ongoing training and support, which is being provided within our free Facebook community. And as you can look there, you see the link for our Facebook. Those of you that's on Facebook, facebook.com/groups, CCFG242. You can go there and request. It's a private Facebook group. You can go there and request access. And in there, we're already beginning to load trainings and load ideas, and to begin to move to build conversations around the community where you may have a challenge in this area and somebody else in the group may be able to help you. And so we are building this community as we go along. So this short-term plan is already on the ground, is already beginning to move, and we're beginning to trend in an upward direction for it. The farm to store aspect is the commercial side of it. And so we said, okay, we can get individuals to feed themselves, but let's go a step further. Let's feed the nation. Like Pastor Eddie said, let's look at markets around the world that there may be a possibility that we are able to tap into, and that we can export to. And now we have income coming back into the country. This helps to strengthen the dollar and all of these other things as it goes along. And so the second stream that we have, as we have already established the cooperative group, it's actually already established. We are working towards our commercial farming initiative, which is inclusive of production and processing. We're working with seasoned farmers, we're working with business persons, so that together we can create a sustainable business model that we believe will benefit the nation. And so this is a part of this whole process that we're building out and that we've been moving on and developing. And so right now, there's 3 layers that we're looking at. Focus marketing, which is being able to get the word out there, get people to come on and to join us. create the necessary partnerships so that we have the right minds that's thinking and helping and collaborating with us to help to drive this thing as we go forward. We're looking at focused education where maybe you don't know what to do to start, and so we started to build these small trainings that you can go and know how to seed plant and what soil to use and what grows best. And so we're building the educational side of it in conjunction. We have Bamsi that's helping us with content, and we're just, listen, man, I am so excited about this. This is amazing, and I believe that this will be something to really be remembered. But more importantly, as opposed to us trying to get on the map to be remembered, we have the ability to change the face of this country. That's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about our opportunity right now. And all of you Bahamians that's on here that's sitting now listening to me, man, listen, you got to be a part of this movement. You got to be a part of what these guys are talking about, because we have the opportunity to change the face of our country. And the truth of it, the matter is I heard Sir Lyndon say one day, he said, if you don't fight for your freedom, you don't deserve to have it. And so we've got to be prepared to push forward and to confront the things that we need to confront so that we get the better end of whatever is being deliberated or whatever is being discussed or what is being shared in this country. We have got to take an active role. And so I just kind of want to encourage you, all of you guys there with that. So I want to extend an exclusive partnership invitation to you. You can go and like our Facebook page. There's the link there, facebook.com/242 Backyard Gardens. Go and join our Facebook group, facebook.com/group/CCFG242. You can send an email directly to us. Maybe you have some ideas, maybe you have some resources, or you have some insight that can help us as we go along. Listen, man, we welcome all that would come from our viewers, our listeners. And indeed, I am blessed and I am so excited to be here with you, Pastor Eddie and Pastor Mago and all of the rest of you presenters. And I think that together, as we take a more collaborative approach, to nation building is important. That we really take a more collaborative approach to nation building. I think that together we can achieve a whole lot more. So with that said, I know you guys have many other presenters. And so I want to thank you on behalf of the CCFG, on behalf of my president, Dr. Pat Paul, and all of the heads of denominations and all of the churches and the groups and the families that's working along with us. And we're pushing from the agricultural front. Some of you guys are pushing from some other fronts, but we all got to put our shoulders to the wheel and push this thing forward if our children will have a better Bahamas. Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Conrad Jones. That was a very comprehensive presentation. I hope, the thing is, Pastor Jones, you're so excited when you present. So I'm excited about planting, just listening to you. And I can see that from the response from some that are online that they're saying it's time to start. So everyone, I want to encourage you. You can start. There are some backyard farming kits that are available through the Ministry of Agriculture.
Yes.
It's only $10. So on Grand Bahama, so you could begin and in the other islands. So they're providing kits to all the islands. So go to your Ministry of Agriculture department and get your farming kit and begin to plant. And also it's important to mention that the Ministry of Agriculture is also providing chicks. So you can grow chickens in your backyard and produce eggs.
Yes.
In your backyard. Did you hear me?
Yes.
In your backyard, you can produce eggs. And you don't have to go and buy eggs anymore. And our government is making these initiatives available. So I want to encourage you all to take advantage of those opportunities. But the time to move is now. We need to plant.
Yes.
And and our soil, it is productive. And there are techniques to help you even produce more when you plant. So again, thank you, Pastor Conrad. I believe it was
Excellent.
providence, that you ended up speaking tonight. And so all things, come together for good for those who trust the Lord. But I also want to comment on something that you said is very important. And you stressed this. To bring change, often you cannot avoid confrontation. And this is very important because when there are some systems that are entrenched, that are working against the people, you have to realize that in order to bring change, you're gonna have some level of confrontation. And when I say confrontation, I'm not talking about no rebellion or anything.
Right.
The fact of the matter is that you're going to get resistance when you're trying to produce change to better people in our country. And I don't know who your mentor was, but the mentor to me who said those same words to me was Dr. Miles Monroe. He stressed the point to me, and he said, he told me those same words, and I've never forgotten them, and it's the truth, and that's what caused me to push and to fight for change. Kirk Russell and all our other team members, that's what we do. We fight for change because we realize that you're going to have some confrontation when you're fighting for change. Well, to continue on with our presentation tonight, we are getting ready to hear from some champions who have been dealing with the whole issue of natural resources and sovereign wealth fund. But before we hear from our presenters, who are powerful presenters, I want to share briefly a news clip. And when you listen to this news clip, I'm going to tell you what is happening now in the government is only because of the movement that has been started by the people in our country and being championed by the presenters that you're going to hear next. So right now, we're going to share with you a ZNS news report with concerning speaking is Michael Folks, who is the MP for Golden Gates, and he's the chairman of the Select Committee of Natural Resources, and he's sharing on the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. He's giving a report. Listen to this news clip from ZNS.
Golden Gates Member of Parliament and Chairman of the Select Committee on Natural Resources, Michael Folks, today revealing that amendments to the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act are being reviewed. He says the move is necessary to ensure every Bahamian benefits. His comments came as he presented his interim report in the House of Assembly.
The natural resources of this country is the birthright of every Bahamian. And this committee is fully determined to get to the bottom of it all the facts are. We will operate on a twin track, so everything natural resources on one hand, and simultaneously on the twin track, the Sovereign Wealth Fund Act. We will review that. Mr. Speaker, we realized that we needed to move in a twin track, one having everything to do with identifying the natural resources, where they are, where they might be, what amounts exist, the sustainability of them, were they being extracted or harvested now or planned to be.
Now, you heard the news clip from ZNS report. All of that is happening because of a movement of the people of this country. That's not happening because it was a government decision. That is now happening because the people spoke, and they spoke loud. And now the government has to switch into gear to deal with natural resources and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Coming to speak next is one of the champions of the movement. He's the champion that's in the halls of Parliament. He's a member of Parliament, and he played a crucial role when it came to the tabling of the bill to, I want to make sure I say it correctly, the bill to repeal the Ocean Industries Incorporated Aragonite Mining Encouragement Act, which was tabled by another champion, MP for Pine Ridge, Pastor Frederick McAlpine, and it was seconded by our speaker tonight, who's coming next, who is a pastor, minister of the gospel, Vaughn Miller, Member of Parliament for Golden Isles. Welcome him as he comes to share with us tonight. Mr. Miller, I know he's on.
Ask him to open his mic.
Can you open up your mic? Your mic is muted. Okay, we have, it looks like we have some technical difficulty there. What we're then going to do is we're going to move to our next presenter, and this is the champion. In fact, let me say this: with every movement, there are individuals that become a catalyst to a movement. Simply mean that when they are raised up, the movement begins to galvanize, it begins to move forward. You begin to see tangible results. And so tonight, we are privileged and grateful to have with us the leader of the I guess what is known as the Team Sovereign Wealth, which really is a coalition of individuals and different groups that have come together, and they have come together so that we could move forward in a more united manner to bring about change in our country. He is the leader of the Bahamian Evolution Group, and we are privileged to have him speak with us tonight. So we welcome. He is also a pastor, and so we welcome Lincoln Bain.
Good evening, and hope you're doing well. It's really a pleasure to be in here with all of you guys. It's a pleasure to be here. You know, we need all hands on deck if we are going to solve and resolve this issue, where Bahamians have been, you know, Bahamians have been wronged for so long. We have been cut out for so long, and it's time for us to get what belongs to us. You know, I just want to say that I was inspired tonight to see the president of the Christian Council coming forward and saying his stance on natural resources in this country in the words that he said. We need to spread it around and let people know that the pastors are not sitting down. People have been calling for the pastors to step up and do their part. And I can't say that many pastors have been supporting behind the scenes and doing many things behind the scenes, but it's time for all of us to stand up. Like Dr. Miles taught me, like you said, you cannot change something that you're afraid to confront. It is impossible. You must confront something that you want to change. But many people are afraid of confrontation, you know, because, you know, they may be compromised or there may be things that they want personally. You're not going to find change until you're willing to sacrifice, until there's something that you're willing to die for, like Christ. In order for us to be saved, Christ had to die. You know, in order for many movements to happen around the world, some leader had to die or have some serious sacrifice. Nelson Mandela had to spend 27 years in jail because that's sometimes what they do. They put trumped up charges on you and jail you. You know, Martin Luther King had to die, you know, to bring the change that came about. Many thousands of people had to die in the Civil War in order for slaves to be free. And so until persons are ready to sacrifice, you're not going to see change. And I think that people have decided that they're ready to stand up and they're ready to do what's right. They're ready to come forward and bring the change that is necessary. I also want to thank Patrick Paul and others for what they're doing with agriculture, because if you can't feed yourself, you're not mature. You're not an adult until you can feed yourself. As long as you're in your parents' house and they still buying your groceries and feeding you, you're not an adult. And so as a country, we're not mature until we're able to feed ourselves. And that is an important mission that you guys are on. And I just want to thank you for that. It's a really good vision. And I just want to thank you for that. I also, because I know you guys are from Freeport, Grand Bahama, I just want to give a shout out to a young man that I respect a lot, and that is KCX, Kendall Colebrook, who's been in this fight for a long time, you know, probably about 30 years. He's been telling people about natural resources, you know, and respect that young man and his efforts.
Lincoln, can I just say something, because I was going to mention that later, but I need to also just to tag on to what you say. KCX, Kendall Colebrook, has been producing videos upon videos and being a voice on natural resources. And I'm telling you, he is one of the ones that have laid the groundwork for what is happening now. There's a number of them that have laid the groundwork for us, but KCX must be commended for what he has done in laying the groundwork and making people more aware of natural resources. And today, we are seeing the manifestation of the message.
Yes, definitely. And I can say that if it wasn't for some of these guys, I would probably not have taken the deep look that I did to take this to the level where it is today, along with persons that work with me. All right. So I just wanted to start with that. And so I want to get to the point of talking about our natural resources. Listen, when we started on this journey, we did not know where we would end up. We did not know that we would see the promised land and that we would be right on top of the mountain top looking over at the promised land, which is what we see right now. We had no idea what had gone on. And we feel that many persons didn't understand what was going on, even persons who were involved in it. Based on our investigations, we found that this thing is bigger than we've even been saying. I got to meet with some persons in the industry, including Mr. Curling, and I call his name because he told me I can call his name, you know. And he said, I said, listen, I'm not going to call your name. I'm not going to tell anybody. He said, you can call my name. You can call my name. It's okay. You know, and he basically said to me that this is bigger than you're even saying. This is bigger, you know. And he started to open my eyes about what's really been going on, and but what the real potential of this thing is. More than has been going on, the real potential. And so we started to get interested in this thing, and we decided to take a look at what is happening. And when we started to take a look, we started to do research on the companies that were doing this, and we started to research in other countries. We started to see that there were companies set up over there, and we started to look and see the connections between them. And we started to realize that this product was being sold for more than we had even been imagined. I saw where a few years ago, Pastor Andrew Stewart, you know, who is another real foundation of this thing. Him and John Pinder put together a letter, and in that letter it said that they were selling this stuff for up to $900 a ton, and they were getting it for $2 a ton. And that made me curious, and I had to go and look, and I had to go and search to see what was really going on, man. Is that true? Are they really getting this stuff for $900 a ton? And that's where the research started. And because I wanted to see, because that didn't make sense to me. It is impossible to me, in my mind, to get something for $2 and sell it for $900. That made absolutely no sense to me. And I went out not looking to see to prove this thing, I went out to disprove what was out there. That was initially what I did. And so as I went out there, I started to research and I started to look for aragonite. And we started to see all of the companies that were doing it, and we started to see what they were selling it for. And when we saw what this stuff was selling for in the market, it blew my mind. We saw Playsan selling for $3,900 per metric ton, and that's what it is bought for $2 a metric ton. We saw the same thing, aquarium aragonite and Playsan selling for up to $7,000. Of course, it's on the market, $7,000 a metric ton. Seeing that as a Bahamian, that blew me away. I instantly called my team and said, y'all wouldn't believe what I found. This is mind-blowing, that this product that they get for $2 from us is selling for this amount of money. $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on average, and they're getting it for $2. So that $900, at $900, those persons felt that we could get, $50,000 per person. And so that encouraged me to really want to calculate and see how much we could really get for this, because we really found it on the market for much more than 900. And so they were saying at the time, that's John Pinder and Andrew Stewart and others, they were saying at the time that we could get $50,000 per person from this. And so that caused me to want to do some calculations. And as we searched some more, we started to see who was connected to this business and what was really going on. And so a lot of documentation started to come to us. And it started to prove some stuff that was going on that was shocking. And many people have watched the documentaries now, so I won't go over it. But we realized that something was amiss, and that we were the wealthiest country in the world. We saw it with our own eyes. And so we started to put the numbers together, and we started to do more research. And so we decided to come up with what we call Vision 2025, and I encourage everyone to read that. But I will tell you, we started to also look at all of the countries that have done this before. This was not new. We started to look at a sovereign wealth fund, and every country that had done it before. We found that Alaska, which is in America, which is a capitalist country, not socialist, they decided to do a sovereign wealth fund. And one governor decided to do this sovereign wealth fund. And he decided to do it first with fisheries, because that was a big industry for them before they found natural gas and oil. And they decided that we would take our fisheries, where we make a lot of money from, and we would take these whatever we make from it, and we would give everybody in Alaska, every resident of Alaska, we would give everybody a check. Every single person we would give a check to from our fisheries. And let me tell you something, they fought him. The people in the industry fought him. This was a nasty fight. It was a serious battle. I'm talking about they fought him on every level. They threatened his election. They went after him. This was really serious. And so, they shut it down. The powers that be shut the governor of Alaska down. They said, there's no way that you are going to let every single Alaskan benefit from this natural resource we call fisheries. And they shut it down. And so later they found, and that was because it was connected to so many powerful people already. There were people already benefiting from this, and they were millionaires, they were powerful, and they were going to destroy him. So he had to step back. But later they found natural gas. I just think this is an interesting story, because we're going through this right now, where we are going through a battle. We're going through a battle to get our natural resources. And he went through a similar battle. They went after him at a personal level, on every kind of level. And when they found natural gas in Alaska, that wasn't connected to anyone because it was a new product. They never knew about it. No one was in that industry. So he said, we're going to take this natural gas and we're going to do the sovereign wealth fund with this. He never gave up. As hard as it was, and as risky as it was, and his backers and everyone told him to shut up and sit down. We'll destroy you. Stop this nonsense. You can't give money to everybody. Everyone doesn't deserve a check. And he decided to do it with natural gas because no one was connected to that. And because no one was connected to it, they gave it to him. They gave it to the governor. They said, okay, we'll try this little experiment with our natural gas. And they did it. And then of course, there was a lot of red tape and making laws and putting everything in place and how it's going to be done. So it took some time, but they did it. And when they started to realize that, oh, wow, everyone is getting a check. This is real. They were telling him it's impossible. This would never happen. Your numbers don't make sense. They were telling him all of these things. It doesn't add up. What are you going to give everyone 1 cent? But they did it with the natural gas. And with the natural gas, they started to get checks. And so this was an experiment. And then they found oil, which again was not connected to any oligarchs or anyone of that nature, no powerful people, because it was new. They found oil. And from the oil, they just said right away, okay, sovereign wealth fund. He didn't even have to ask for it because they had already seen that this thing can work with the natural gas, which was less, but the oil was now going to be more. And they took it and they said, yep, straight to the sovereign wealth fund. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. They don't call it that, but it's a sovereign wealth fund. And everyone gets a check every single year from their oil. And that is amazing. That was an experiment in a capitalist country where this can happen. Norway did something similar with their sovereign wealth fund. And I'm teaching about this because now our government, because of our efforts, are now talking about sovereign wealth fund. We have pushed them and forced their hand to now start talking about it. But we don't trust them. We're not interested in any promise about what you're going to do after election. This is not a political statement. This is a real statement. We want to see it now. Now, because the sovereign wealth fund that they were proposing before we really started putting pressure on them, it's not doable. There's nothing for Bahamians to benefit directly. All right. They said that they would take sovereign wealth fund and start doing infrastructure on the family islands. No, we want them to use the VAT for that, the taxes for that, the customs duty for that. Don't take our sovereign wealth fund and do that. We need to benefit by getting a check every single year. Okay. And so I looked at Norway, and Norway did the same thing. They said, listen, they had all this oil. And them and England discovered oil almost about the same time. England ran out of oil and they ran out of money. The money just ran away. Norway said, we have to save this money for future generations. So they decided that we're going to do a sovereign wealth fund. We're not going to give anyone any cash, but we're going to give you all the services that you deserve, your free electricity, your free utilities, you know, free healthcare, free education, all of those things that you spend so much money on. They said, we'll give that to you so you don't have to worry about anything. And they take care of their people. So they don't give you a check, but their sovereign wealth fund now has $1.4 trillion in it, which means they can give you a check. If that was Bahamas with our population, that would be $4 million for every single Bahamian. Every single Bahamian. Now, how does it work? They don't take the money from the natural resource directly and give it back. They take it and invest it. And from the investments is what they pay out. So for example, now Norway made over $280 billion from their sovereign wealth fund, not off of selling a drip of oil. That was from trading the money that is in the sovereign wealth fund. So if you have $1 trillion, you made $200 billion, that's because you made 20% on your money. They actually made 20% on all of their trades. They made 7.5% from their real estate investments and 7% from their fixed investments. So they took the money and invested in good investments like Google, like Microsoft, like these investments. Anything out of their country they invest in, and that's for a reason. But that is what they do with it. And so when we gave our numbers, some people were saying like, these numbers, where are you getting these numbers from? These numbers aren't real. You have to add this and calculate that, and you're calculating by every payment. No, we're calculating by the trading that you do with the money and how this money is going to be exponential. That is how the sovereign wealth fund is supposed to work. We need a real sovereign wealth fund. And so that is what they did. And that's why they have so much leftover cash. And we started to look at the Middle East and all of the advantages that they have there. They get money and they also get all of these amenities. And so their sovereign wealth fund total is less, but that's because they spend it on their people. And so they have hundreds of millions of dollars in their sovereign wealth fund. And that's where we need to get. As I started to study, I realized that our sovereign wealth fund, our natural resources are worth more than the natural resources of these countries. They depend on oil. Oil is not the most used natural resource. It is not the number one natural resource. The number one natural resource in the world is sand. Aragonite is a type of sand. Okay, there's silica sand and there's calcium carbonate sand, which is aragonite. Right? It's just a makeup. So it's like a wooden house or a stone house. It's still a house. So aragonite is sand. Okay, it's just a special type of it. All right, and so it is more valuable as we research. This is where the research started. We realized, guys, that sand was rare. They were running out of sand around the world. That's easily accessible sand, because all of the easily accessible sand around the world, they've already taken. And so now the sand that they get is going to come from under the ocean. And the easiest place to do that is in the shallow waters that they call the Bahamas. And so we have the biggest store of sand in the world, the biggest reserve of sand in the world. Can you imagine that every country has run out of oil and only the Bahamas has oil? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine how wealthy we'd be? Imagine if every country ran out of water and only us have water and they got to get it from us. Can you imagine how wealthy and powerful that would make us? Well, guess what? The world has run out of sand for the most part. And guess who has the most sand? Us. This rare product, which is the second most used natural resource in the world, second only to water. Can you imagine that? Sand is second to water. There's air, then water, then sand. We have it. They've been telling you that it has no value. And so that's where Mr. Kerling sat me down. He started to show me how many countries need this sand and that we need to open this thing up. And that's why they wanted the Bahamas to see what is going on. Because he said, the world needs this stuff. They're desperate for it. And we have a type of sand that is renewable. The more you move, the more it comes back. And so the other people don't have that. Our sand is just amazing. God gave us the only natural resource that is renewable. He gave us the only natural resource that is renewable. And we have it. And we've been sitting on it for all these years, saving it up for this very day. And so now we have the one product that the whole world needs. And it's time for us to get on it. He taught me how there are 51 countries that are trying to expand their landmass. 51 countries trying to expand their landmass. China has built another 4,600 square miles of landmass. That's bigger than Andres, which is the 5th largest island in the Caribbean. Can you imagine? They built a whole Andres with sand. They had to get this sand from somewhere. And so many other countries, Singapore is such a small country, but it's expanding so fast. Everyone wants to go to live there. And so they have to go up by building skyscrapers and go out by reclaiming the sea. They have been taking so much sand from their neighbors that their neighbors have told them, no, we're out of sand. Islands are disappearing. We're out of sand. We can't give it any more sand. And so people started smuggling sand to them, causing sand wars and sand mafias. And last year they got 59 million tons of sand from one country, Malaysia. They got more sand than that, but that's what they just got from one country. They got over 130 million tons of sand, but 133, but they got 59 million tons from one country. Can you imagine that? Do the math. They paid $190 per ton. $190 per ton. If you do the math on that, my Lord, if you do the math on that, that will blow your mind. That's $11.2 billion. That's $11.2 billion at $190 per ton. That's not even the real value. Australia sold their sand for $395.75, so I'll say $400 per metric ton. Now this sand, because some of the people who were trying to keep this from us were telling us, oh, the sand, it has to be processed, and there's a lot of money to process, so there's no money in this. if you want to make money from this, you have to process it. We don't have any money. That is not true. Australia sold their raw sand for $400 per metric ton. This is on their website, the government website. They sold 1.4 million tons of sand, and they made over 580 something million dollars from just 1.4 million tons. They sold it for $400 per metric ton. Can you imagine the Bahamas? We have the sand that the whole world need. 51 countries are aggressively trying to build. That's not talking about all of the other industries, the fracking industry, where they need sand desperately. That's not talking about the glass industry, the plastic industry. All of these industries need sand and aragonite. So many industries, it is the most used in the world. Even to make steel, they need sand. They use sand for everything, y'all. To build a house, you cannot build a house without sand. It is impossible. All concrete is sand. You need it. The world needs what we have. And so while they were telling you that our sand is worth nothing, they lied. That was not the truth. We have the vibranium of the real world. And many of us were jumping up and down, a few years ago, watching this movie called Black Panther, where this Black nation has this one resource that is so valuable, that is amazing, that it is the future. And through that natural resource that they became wealthy, extremely wealthy, to where their people are living good and living a good life. We have vibranium. We have the one product that the whole world needs. The one product. Listen, the whole world is going virtual. Whereas we would have had this town meeting in some building or some church somewhere. That's where we would have had this town meeting. Now we're online. Do you know what you need to have this online? You need to do this in the clouds, and you need servers. Servers need sand. That's what they make it the service out of. Every single thing that has a chip, it uses sand. So your cell phone needs a sand to make the chip. Your remote control, everything that has a chip needs sand. So where the world is going, we have the stuff to make it happen. They need more and more servers for more and more cloud space. We have it. Bahamas, we have to understand our value. The world has changed. And I want to say to all of the oligarchs out there, or any government ministers out there who are afraid of giving the power to the people, it's time. Change has to come. Eventually, slavery had to end because they knew it was wrong, and you couldn't work off of slave labor for too long. Curling, and when it ended, they just went into industries. They just changed what they were doing. They just had to change. But now the change has come for the Bahamas. Mr. Curling said something to me when we started to talk, when we met, and he said, Lincoln, I feel guilty about how much money I've made off of what belongs to the Bahamian people. I respect him for what he did. He said, I'm an old man now and I've made my money. I think the Bahamians should have theirs. We need the Bahamians to know what has really been going on. And so while there might be naysayers who, dispute the numbers, etc., but the numbers are very simple. That's why we provided very simple numbers. We think that we can mine 1 billion tons of sand per year. We know we can do it because we have the customers. We identified the customers. There are many countries that need this stuff. And we can mine 1 billion tons of sand a year. We identified an area of the ocean where it would not cause any problems. We identified an area of the ocean where we were told that the defense was ships used to go across it near to Eleuthera, but now the sand is coming out of the water because this stuff is just building up. And if we don't move it, the stuff is building up. They showed us places in other islands and Andres where the sand is just building up and coming across over into the land because the sand just builds up, and we got to do something with it. And so we identified areas where we can move that amount of sand and it won't even be noticeable, and it won't affect anything. And actually, we could move more sand than that, but that was to be responsible. So $1 billion times what Australia is selling it for, $400 per ton, is $400 billion. We decided to put that number down just for people who are scared of these numbers and say, let's say we make half of that, and it's more like what Singapore bought it for. Let's say it's $200. That's $200 billion a year. What is stopping us, Bahamas? Even if these numbers are inflated and we only make half of that, that's $100 billion. Even if these numbers are inflated and we only make a quarter of that, that's $50 billion. Our yearly budget is $2 billion, up to $2.5 billion. Can you understand where we will be? To give everything that we were offering, everything that we were talking about, we will spend about $35 to $37 billion. That gives every single Bahamian $100,000 a year, every single Bahamian. So we use the Joseph rule, since y'all are pastors, where it's 80-20. So pastors would know what the Joseph rule is, all right, the Joseph law. And so we take the 80% and we reinvest it. The 20%, we keep it and do and put it into our economy. And so we give every Bahamian, I'm sorry, I should turn my phone down. We give every Bahamian $100,000 per year. $100,000 per year. That is every Bahamian with a passport, every single one. The children don't get that amount of money, all right? The children don't get that. The children, we invest in an endowment fund for them. So when they're born, we open an account for them. We give them $20,000 that we put in there. Every year, we put $20,000 in their endowment fund. And by the age of 21, that's $420,000. But they make another $1 million, basically, from the trading of this, from the trading of that $20,000 on a yearly basis. So the principal is $420,000, and the trading of it is another $1 million. That $1 million we propose to give to every single Bahamian when they reach the age of 22. Of course, there's stipulations, all right? And we take the $400 and put it back in the pot for other children. These numbers are shocking to people, but these are things that are happening around the world. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. It can be done. We calculated everything from the cost of electricity. We gave it $500 million. We can pay for that with 100 or 200 or $50 billion. We can afford it just off of the sun. 500 million is for electricity. Right now they spend 480 million on electricity, but of course we'll get the price of that down. Healthcare, we average 7 based on what CFAL and the government and the previous government said. We averaged that we would need $700 million to give every single Bahamian free healthcare. $700 million, that's based on their numbers. So even if you take it to $1 billion, we still have more than enough to cover it, but it's within our budget. We calculated for every Bahamian to get free internet and free data. So we are a new connected society. That would only cost about $100 million. Free water, $70 million. And these are from the government budgets that we are using. So we can cover all of these things within the budget that we said. And we can make this happen. And while we're making this happen, it's growing and growing and growing. What happened in Norway is their money grew and grew and grew. Now they don't have to sell any oil. In fact, they've reached the point where they're not doing any oil exploration and they're moving out of the oil business because now their sovereign wealth fund is enough to cover their country. After 5 years of making $200 billion a year in our sovereign wealth fund, we will have $1.1 trillion in our sovereign wealth fund, after deducting all of the expenses every year. This is possible and this is doable. For the complete idea of what I'm talking about, go and watch Vision 2025. It will change your thinking. It will change your mind. I will end with this. We have the most valuable and needed product in the world. This product they have been telling us has no value. There's no market for it, they said. It is not true. There's a huge market. And what we need to do is take it to the next level. And so now that you see that by our actions, by standing up, all parties are now talking about sovereign wealth funds to benefit the Bahamian people and natural resources, using our natural resources, every single party. And this has happened over the last few months since we have been doing this. The PLP has come aboard and said that this is going to be what they want to do. The DNA has said the same thing. All the third parties have said the same thing. And now the FNM is saying the same thing. The problem is you cannot trust politicians. We've been waiting on our Freedom of Information Act for how long? How long have we been waiting on that? 2 administrations have promised it. It was actually promised before that, but one administration passed it and never enacted it. The next administration came in, it is enacted, they fought this, we're gonna do this. The first thing we're gonna do, this newspaper report, the first thing we're gonna do is give you the Freedom of Information Act. We still haven't gotten it. And I don't see it coming anytime soon. And so Bahamians will have to wise up. To get the pressure off of themselves, they're now promising you a sovereign wealth fund. That sovereign wealth fund is a trick. It's not automatic. Every sovereign wealth fund is different. Listen to me very carefully. Every sovereign wealth fund is different. You have to determine what your sovereign wealth fund is going to do. So just saying you have a sovereign wealth fund is not enough. You have to determine what you're going to do with it. And so when they say every Bahamian benefits, that's a trick. You could benefit because they say, well, we're doing an infrastructure project in the Family Island. Then that means they fulfill their promise because you benefit. No, we want a sovereign wealth fund where every Bahamian can get a check. I'll give you examples. In the United Arab Emirates, when you're born, they open an account for you. When you become 18, they give you $100,000. They open that account. Every time you get married, they give you $20,000 and some land. They bury you. They pay for all of your funeral expenses. They pay for all of your education anywhere in the world. These are the kinds of benefits you have when you are a resident in these places. I spoke to Bahamian recently who's a resident, and he said he got sick and he had to get MRIs and all kinds of things, and everything was free. And it was professional because they can spend money on healthcare because they have the money. And he was blown away by the fact that he's a foreigner and everything was just free. We have to change our culture. We need there's a new day in the Bahamas. It is possible. Do not believe anything they tell you. They want the status quo to remain. And yes, we've been pushing, and now they've been promising. They promised the Freedom of Information Act because people were pushing for it. Organizations were formed like ORG in order to fight for it. And so they said, okay, we're gonna give it to you. Then they passed it. See, we passed it, okay, yeah. But they never enacted it. And now they're saying we have to wait to find a commissioner for it. Come on. And so don't fall for their tricks about the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We can't trust them to do it. We need a shift. We need a real movement. But the new Bahamas is here. And this can only happen if you join with us to make this happen. The new Bahamas is here. I hope you're ready for this new Bahamas. They have been fighting us. They're going to continue to fight us, but they're moving in the direction we want them to. But just don't settle for their promises. Thank you for listening to me. Change is not coming. Change is here.
Change is not coming. Change is here. That is the word. That is the word. Lincoln, I might as well tell you, you got me excited, but I think my wife is more excited. So I've been holding up back, and she has, she got some things to say. And so go ahead, Aldo.
I totally agree with you, Lincoln. I was excited the first day y'all showed up on TV because I thought, this is true. What they're saying makes sense, and it can happen. And we have to break that mindset in Bahamian where we think that's not possible or we'll never be any different. And just continuing the movement is going to cause it to happen. And so I totally agree that we need to give Bahamians those funds, that we need to look at what other nations have done. I read recently that Ghana used their natural resources to cut poverty in half. And so
Yes.
if an African country like Ghana can do it, if Norway can do it, if Alaska can do it, we are also human beings made in the image and in the likeness of God. We can also do this. And the natural resources were put in the earth for us to have for generations to benefit. If
Yes.
God wanted it to be wasted and used by one organization or one private group, He would have made that accessible in just one area for one family. But this thing is massive. I like how you put it. It's the whole world needs it, and we have it. And every Bahamian should benefit. So we stand behind you in prayer and whatever we need to do to push this movement. And I'm hoping that every Bahamian who understands what God has given us would do the same. Let's stop talking and let's stand behind this movement. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Well, we have one more speaker, and there were some technical difficulties, and that's why he could not come on earlier. And so he's going to come on, and then we're going to take questions, and we're going to answer some questions. So it'll be our Q&A section. And so I encourage you to start, for those that are on Zoom and on Facebook, we're going to try to answer some of the questions. We're not going to be able to answer all the questions tonight, but we will do our best to answer as many as we can. And hopefully maybe after this live stream is over, we will try to address some of the questions in the comment section on Facebook. So we encourage you to go ahead even now and start sending your questions in, because our next presenter, I mentioned earlier that we have champions with this movement. And our next speaker is one of our champions in Parliament. It is good to know that we have members of Parliament who are truly representatives of the people and of their constituency. And we can say with our next speaker that he is a representative of the people. And so let's just welcome our next presenter, the Member of Parliament for Golden Isles, Vaughn Miller. Sasha Lee, let's see if you could unmute. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good night, Pastor. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes.
Let me say good night to you, and to the viewing and listening audience, to your guests. Good night, everyone. Thanks for inviting me and for allowing me to be a part of this historic occasion. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can. We can hear you clearly.
Because I know earlier there were challenges, and I want to apologize for that. I had to reboot and to come back and let me clearly state that the main reason for me becoming involved in frontline politics and in the House of Assembly is for the advancement, for the upliftment of the Bahamian people, especially the poor, marginalized, and disenfranchised Bahamians, especially those who sacrificed tremendously and voted for us to represent them and be their voices. Those who made it possible for us to be where we are, but we often forget them. They put us first, but very often, too many times, we put them last. I've been very consistent and persistent on this issue of natural resources. The 2017 budget and every budget thereafter, the central theme of all of my presentations have been on natural resources. From day one and into perpetuity, my position has been and will always be that the natural resources belong to the Bahamian people, and as such, the Bahamian people must be the primary beneficiaries. Also want to add to that, as an F&M member of parliament for Golden Isles, that was my position. As an independent member, that was my position. And presently, as the PLP member of parliament, that is my unchanging and unflinching position. Our natural resources belong to the Bahamian people. It is where our new streams of revenue will emerge, and the Bahamian people must be the primary beneficiaries. It's always been my position, will always be my position. I know that time is of the essence. Usually I would do a general presentation on it, time is of the essence, and I certainly would not do that. But I want to pay kudos and to salute a number of persons. I want to salute Mr. Lincoln Bain and his team for the work they've done, they are doing, and for the public presence, and for really taking it even further into the public domain and awakening our people with regard to our natural resources. It was on the backs of persons like C. Allen Johnson, like the late Pastor Stewart, like Mr. Darling, who's a constituent here in Golden Isles. But the two persons that really introduced me to this area was Pastor Micklin Seymour and Mr. Prescott Smith of Andros. And I just want to publicly state that and to thank them. I always knew that there was something about our country that was much more than we were being told. We were always told that we were just sun, sand, and sea, and that was for others to come and enjoy. But in the sun, in the sand, and in the sea, there lie our treasures. In the sun, our geographical space is more than 100,000 square miles. So that gives us that amount of potential solar energy. Also, our airspace that finally, we will be compensated for. It's a part of our natural resources. Our land, crown land, treasury land, governmental land, our land, in excess of over 2 million acres of crown land in the Bahamas. That alone speaks volumes of the potential that we have and what we can do. Our sea, Lincoln focused heavily on the sand, and understandably so. Aragonite, the sand, our limestone, we term it aggregate. Our sea, our deep water ocean, our marine resources. And I just want to reflect just a little on it. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I just want to reflect just a little on it. Our ocean, as a matter of fact, in terms of aragonite, in terms of our sand, so many things it can be used for. Fertilizer enhancement, water treatment, corrosion control, heavy metal removal, radioactive mitigation. Wherever you have oil spills, even example, the oil spill in Eastern Grand Bahama, our sand could have been used to mitigate that. Some was used, to what extent, not certain, to make plastic, marble, housewares, optics, cell phone screen. All the cell phone lovers and users, the screen on the cell phones, most of it that we use is made from our sand. And then it's less carbon footprint, less environmental damage, and as stated, sustainable and renewable. We have the third largest barrier reef in the world. The largest is in Australia. Second, the largest is in Belize. We have the third largest barrier reef in the world. Our deep water fishes, marine resources, we just passed a bill in the House last night, has to do with fishing in our waters and dealing with the Bahamian ownership, the Bahamian participation in that field, in that area, landmark legislation. That had everything to do with our natural resource. The seabed, it's a natural resource. The sea itself, the ocean, natural resource. The fishes in the ocean are marine resources, natural resource. In the Bahamas, we have the Great Bahama Bank and we have the Little Bahama Bank. Okay, we have, I said, our strategic deep ocean corridors, the Northwest, the Northeast, Providence Channel, the Maguana Passage, the Crooked Island Passage, the Little Bahama Bank. We have sand, aragonite, granite, solar salt, calcium bicarbonate, that's known as limestone, of which I made that presentation on. We have oil and all the controversy around oil. We have natural gas, our seabed, our fresh water, they call groundwater, our pine forest, our coppice or deciduous. This includes the cascarilla bark, that they make the Campari from. Also mahogany. We have so many natural resources. So many. Listen to this. I just want to give you some pre-pandemic statistics. In the United States, we have the largest fishing flats. The largest fishing flats. The most blue holes in the Western Hemisphere. In the United States, pre-pandemic, they spent over $42 billion in sport fishing, over $23 billion in hunting. Wildlife watchers, over $71 million just to watch it. We have it. Now, in terms of our forest, our pine forest, I can tell you the Chinese have been trying for years. For years, the Chinese have been attempting to get the license to manufacture lumber in the Bahamas. We can do it in North Andros. We can do it in Abaco. Recommendations have been made as to how we can do it. We have the resources. I just want to put a focus as I conclude on limestone. We call calcium carbonate limestone. It's a presentation that I made in the House of Assembly. And in that presentation, it astounded me, shocked me, whereby over a 16 months period, from February 2019 to June this year, 2020, out of Freeport, Grand Bahama, they exported in excess of 4 billion kilograms of limestone. As a matter of fact, the exact figure is 4,179,204,240 kilograms of limestone out of Freeport, Grand Bahama. valued by their customs declaration at $1.31 per kilogram. Of course, many persons attacked me on it, saying it's impossible, but that was their quote. The dollar value was in excess of $5 billion in 16 months. 5,474,757,554 in a 16 months period of time. And guess what? They have never stopped exporting it. They are still exporting it along the eastern seaboard of the United States of America. And that's just the United States, where they are storing a whole lot of it. They are storing it for their construction, road construction, building construction purposes, and the sand that Mr. Bain spoke of earlier. Anytime hurricanes pass through, and for other reasons, there's always beach erosion. Where do you think they go to get the sand to replace on their beaches? The beautiful Bahamas. I note you played an excerpt by the chairman of the Select Committee on Natural Resources. And I just want to share. The purpose is to investigate all matters relative to the natural resources of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, above and below the terrain and the sea, to identify the sources of the natural resources that contribute to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as well as entities, historical and current, engaged in the extraction, identify areas of disbursements, recommend to Parliament mechanisms to enhance accountability and the transparency in awarding contracts for exploration and extraction and receipt of disbursement, and to consider and suggest the best ways to ensure that the birthright of every Bahamian is legally protected, with power to send for persons and papers, with leave to sit from place to place, and with leave to sit during the recess. The announcement that was also made in the Parliament is that beginning on the 14th of January 2021, by God's grace, we'll begin visiting different areas in the Bahamas. The first will be Andros, beginning in North Andros, scheduled trip there. And certainly, most definitely, we'll also be going to Grand Bahama and several other locations throughout the Bahamas. That's natural resources connected. Now, persons always say this, and I heard Mr. Bain say it when he was speaking, and they speak of politicians in a negative light, and I understand that. But I am certain, after 3 years in the Parliament, that my record speaks, my character speaks, and I made it clear when I entered the Parliament as a free Black man with my integrity intact. And whenever I leave the Parliament, I leave as a free Black man with my integrity intact. The reason I'm there, one of the sole reasons I am there, as I stated earlier, is to advance the cause of the average, everyday Bahamian who has been locked out, who has been marginalized, who is stricken in poverty, and has been misrepresented or unrepresented, to be their voice, to represent and to speak for them. And whatever is owing and whatever our people deserve is to stand up and to make certain that they get what they so richly, desperately deserve. I firmly believe, I think it was Victor Hugo who said that greater than the forces of armies is the power of an idea whose time has come. I firmly believe that this is the time for the Bahamian people, eyes to be opened, for the Bahamian people to develop a resolve and a will to stand up and to fight for what we deserve to have. This is that time for the empowerment of our people. It was the late Honorable Marcus Garvey who stated, he said, "Up ye mighty race, ye can accomplish what ye will." This is that time that we can accomplish. This is our time. This is our season for us as a people to come together, regardless of the political barriers, regardless of the denominations we're part of, regardless. This is the time. This is the season for Bahamian people to stand united, to stand together. It was Frederick Douglass, the late, who said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." The late Marcus Garvey also said, "Progress is never won on the backs of cowards." This is the time for the Bahamian people to rise up. This is the time for that spirit that the Bahamian people had during the time of the Burma Road incident. That's the Bahamian people that I'm personally looking for. This is the time for those Bahamians who stood up for the general strike, locked the country down. That's the Bahamian people who will need to stand up and to rise up and to come together and to demand what is ours and what we deserve. And as the father of our nation stated, if Bahamians ain't prepared to stand up and fight and defend their own Bahamas, then you don't deserve to have it. That's the spirit that I've come in. That's the spirit that I've addressed you in. I believe firmly, unequivocally, it's our time, but it's not going to drop in your hand. You have to stand up. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "A man only can ride you if your back is bent." We have to stand up, and we have to be courageous and fight for what is rightfully ours, to create a better Bahamas and leave a lasting legacy to pass on to those, to my son and to your daughter and sons and daughters, and leave a mark. Let them see the example of what we have done, what we fought for. They would have persons to emulate. May Almighty God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and make the tremendous wealth that we have, make it more common. God bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Vaughn Miller. I'm going to tell you what we have heard here today was so insightful, informational, and inspiring. And our MP in Parliament, he has proven himself. We've watched him, and we've watched how he stood up for the people, and we've watched how, because he stood up for the people, how his government colleagues reacted to his stance. And that's the problem, truly, with what's going on right now in our government. And this is not to criticize a government. It's a system. It's a system that we should have
what life is really.
MPs who are representatives and not politicians. I'm going to say that again. We got too many politicians. We need some representatives of the people. And if we had the representatives of the people, we would be further along with this movement at this point. But in the providence of time, the change is here. And this movement is moving forward. And what was echoed, that we must unite together. And we must fight for our country and fight for these resources that belongs to the Bahamian people. Bahamians, citizens, we are the inheritors of the Bahama land. And it is time to unite together with Bahamian evolution, unite together with any group who is willing to work together so that we can advance this movement and see the manifestation. And I'm going to say this in a very short period of time. No longer are we going to say someday, maybe in the long distant future. We're talking about seeing it,
making it
happen now. Now, what we need to do is, we have some questions already. We want to encourage everyone, if please send your questions in, and we're gonna ask a question right now. I got two of them, and these are going to be directed primarily to Lincoln Bain and Vaughn Miller. Here's the first question, and this is concerning what was mentioned by Vaughn Miller. He mentioned about the limestone that has been extracted out of Grand Bahama. The question is, where did all the money go? That's the question. So whoever wants to answer that question, please go ahead and do so.
Well, the Vaughn isn't ready. I'll answer. It's obvious where the money went. But the most important question is where the money didn't go. The money didn't go to benefit the Bahamian people.
Yeah.
The money went to those companies that are listed. I think Juan would have the document in front of him of the companies that benefited from this. There are several companies, Bahama Rock and other companies that use our limestone. And so money went to them, but that's not important. Money is going to continue to go to them because they're in the business. I'm not trying to stop them from being in the business. What we want to do is get our royalties from it. Many of you watch Shark Tank, and there's one guy on there called Mr. Wonderful, and he's always trying to get royalties because he knows that is where the money is, if you watch Shark Tank. And we need to get our royalties. Royalties is a way that you make money in your sleep. If you're an author or a songwriter, etc., you know that is how your money comes in. When you talk about how much money celebrities have, Jay-Z, Michael Jackson, these kinds of people, it comes in from their royalties, from the songs that they did, because they own it. And so just like we own our natural resources, we should get the royalties for the use of these natural resources. So some people say, if you don't have the money to mine it, we're not talking about mining all these natural resources. Yes, y'all can come in and mine it, but guess what? We're going to get paid royalties because it's ours, and we should get the lion's share of it. And so that's basically how it works. So the real question is, who didn't get it? And based on what was said in the House of Assembly this time, for last year, we got $0 from the limestone that was mined and $24 from the aragonite. That is a crime against humanity.
That's a crime.
It sure is.
That's a crime.
Yeah, if I may just add, it is listen. Let me see if I can get to this technology and make, because
there you go.
We got you.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's a beautiful picture. It's a good picture.
See, Mr. Bain didn't teach me all the tricks of the technology. So he's far more savvy in this field than I am. But let me say, he's absolutely correct. The issue, and that's not only with the limestone. It's the same challenge with our salt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was the same challenge with our aragonite. Okay, and now that our eyes are opened, now that we are awakened, it is critically important. It's critically important. Like I said, power concedes absolutely nothing without a demand. Wealthy people are not going to give it to us.
Yes.
Not going to happen.
Yeah.
Power concedes nothing without a demand. So it's on us as a people to develop the courage and to stand up and to make the necessary demands and determine that we will not go away unless and until that we have it. And so that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, and I just want to add, well, first of all, I really, again, publicly want to thank you, Vaughn, for what you did, standing up for the people, not just recently with our bill, but also you've been doing this for quite some time, and you've been stung by the system. You know, they have tried to strike you down, but they can't do anything with you. But you sacrifice everything for what you believe in, and I respect that wholeheartedly, and I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to thank you again publicly for everything that you've been doing.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate those sentiments, and what I'm going to tell you, it's you know, when God has called you and gives you that courage to do it, you just do it. So all praise to Him for giving me that courage and that fortitude. But thank you very much.
Yeah, and I will say finally that you know, I heard that they're going to be doing research and they're going to be traveling around the Bahamas doing their stuff, and we're glad that they're going to be doing that. But we're not gonna. To me, it's a stall tactic of the committee. We trust you 100%, but it's a stall tactic. They know exactly what's going on with the natural resources. The government has been a partner in all the natural resources mining that's been going on. They know exactly where it is and what's going on. Everyone who is doing natural resources has gotten a license from them. They know everything. We don't have time for the old political tricks. You know, the committee, to me, is a stall tactic to give them time to get close to the election, to when they could get you an election fever and you're not worried about anything anymore. We trust you. We trust you, but we don't trust them. You're a minority on that committee, and we don't trust them. We saw what they did with the People's Bill, and we saw you stand up, but we don't trust them. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not need a committee to tell us what to do with this. In a few short months, we were able to investigate everything as it relates to natural resources in this country. The government knows exactly what's happening. There's always need to get more information, but they just need to give us our sovereign wealth fund. We don't need to wait for the committee to go all over the Bahamas to go look at stuff and have tours and take pictures in order to get that. We need this to happen now. If you let them go to election and promise you, nothing will happen. And these oligarchs and these other people who struck Vaughn down, who struck others down, Reese Chipman and others down, they will hide this thing so deep in new legislation that you will not be able to do anything about it anymore. We have to strike while the iron is hot, and we have to put the pressure on them. Don't trust anything that this government is offering you as it relates to natural resources and any committee.
Well, let me say this, Lincoln, I gotta just share this on the chat. What we're seeing is that what you just said about that our government people know what's going on. So many are confirming this, and I can personally confirm. And when I say confirm, I cannot, you know, this is confidential information in the sense of who shared this with me. But I can tell you that this has been known, what's actually in our country, the natural resource, it's been known for decades.
Yes.
I'm going to say this, it's been known for decades. And if any government official wants to dispute it, then dispute it. But it's been known by the government for decades what's here.
Pastor Victor.
Yeah.
Pastor Victor, one, you know, I have to agree with Lincoln, Mr. Bain, on his position as to the stance and the position that the people in the country ought to take at this particular time.
Yes.
I believe that we would have passed the stage of the government doing a island hopping site tour as to what we have in this country. This is the time for the government to be focused on the creation and establishment and of laws and policies to regulate and govern this industry. This is not the time, man. I think we have past that period.
Yes.
For just forming committees and going around the country on a political site visit to various spots in this country. This is the time for us to put down the hard laws and policies to regulate this thing. I believe this is the time for us to ensure and put down moratoriums on all new business as it relates to agreements and contracts with foreign entities and anything to deal with natural resources. There should be a moratorium on it to shut it down and let us put legislation in place. Let the politicians do their job and put the legislations in place, put the laws and policies in place that will create the framework for Bahamians to own a piece of this country. That is where we need to go now. This is no time for an island hopping site visit. That is my position on it.
If you understand political science, you will know that committee is where a politician sends any issue to die. That's correct. The purpose of the committee. Remember, on the previous administration, I'll let you go right now, Vaughn. On the previous administration, you heard of Mr. Christie kind of invented this committee thing for us, and they had so many committees formed, and we never heard back from many of them. And so this is what the Bahamian people are wary of, and we can't allow it to happen. We have to put pressure on the government to actually take action.
No, let me speak for me personally and candidly on this. That may indeed be historically what happened to committees. I could speak for me. If the day comes that I find that to be the case, I will publicly declare that. Publicly, I will declare that. But I'll tell you what it's going to take. It's going to take, rather than persons just talking this, it's going to take joining the public demonstrations.
Yes.
That's what this, and joining the fight. So you could be against this, and that's fine to be against it. But this is going to take more than talk.
Yeah.
This is going to take more than talk. Your walk is going to have to match your talk.
That's correct.
Hey,
I think what
you sound like a trade unionist, Lord.
No, I'm saying, listen, trade unions have sold us out in the past. I used to be on one. And I'm not saying you're one, but I'm saying for me, I have a track record of fighting, and that's not going to change now. So
that's correct.
All of us, notice I'm saying all of us, okay?
Yeah.
That's why for where I am, I've taken my stand based on my conviction, and that'll never change. But it's going to take fighting on the inside and fighting from the outside.
Yes.
I'm telling you, power concedes nothing without a demand. The demand has to be strong enough.
Yes.
Has to be strong enough. And that's what this is going to take. That may very well be the case historically of committees. And I assure you, if I, Vaughn P. Miller, find that to be the case in this committee, you all will be the first to know, because I will publicly declare it and resign from the committee. Because I'm not playing games with the Bahamian people. Is not why I got involved with politics. And if they think they're going to use me for that, they should know me well enough to know I don't run games. I do not run games. So I'm just giving this a fair chance. And if indeed what you all are saying is correct, we shall find out shortly. Well, I assure you, that's my position. I assure you that.
I like what you all are saying, but I think a lot of the study has been done already on the potential of the aragonite. And yes, I think the government should do their study, but I believe because all of the work that has been done on the aragonite industry, I believe policies can be made regarding regulating that industry and making the sovereign wealth fund based on aragonite, and then use that policy across the board for the forest industry, foresting, for fishing, and for all those other industries that are out there. But we could set the policies based on what we know right now about aragonite, and then put those policies across the board.
Yeah,
So
I just want to ask a quick question to Vaughn. I want to ask you two questions. This will be the first one. This committee was formed in about February, right?
No, July.
In July.
July.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, it's July. So this committee was formed in July, and of course, I was told by persons that the first document that this committee has received has been our document, which is the People's Bill. Has anyone been summoned? Has the committee done anything up to this point? What is, because this is public information, what has the committee done thus far?
No, I will send you a copy of the report. I'll send it to you. Okay.
Thank you.
But we've been meeting, and we've had some challenges with some of our meetings because some of the members actually came down with COVID. And so there was some challenges with those meetings. And then for some reason, they didn't want to do the virtual. They just wanted the meetings to be in person. So that took a toll. But I assure you, in terms of
did we lose MP Miller?
Yeah, it looked like he stalled.
His video stuck.
Yeah, just give him
let him know.
Okay.
So I'll say what I wanted to get to in the meantime.
Okay.
You know, and that is that the committee is formed in July, and it is now December, the end of the year, and there has been no forward movement.
Yep.
Now they're talking about forward movement because we put pressure on them.
Put pressure on.
I don't trust this committee, and I want to make that clear to everybody. I do trust Vaughn Miller that he will do the right thing for the people, but that committee has 4 FNMs and 3 others, and they have no power to do what they want to do on that committee. All right, they formed the committee. They had Reese Chipman as the chairman, and they had an election after it was formed. And they said how this thing was formed, made it seem like such a good thing. This is going to help the people, and see Reese Chipman is in charge of it, so you can trust him. And then guess what happened? Reese Chipman was voted out as chairman while we weren't looking, and they replaced him with Michael Folks and made him chairman. But they didn't say anything about that. That wasn't published out there. No one knew, and no one said who was in the committee said anything. And so that is the kind of tricks that politicians play. After forming the committee, getting your comfort, getting your trust, because the committee was formed for this, you're like, yes, they're gonna finally do something. They're gonna look into this, and then they played their political tricks. And that's why I keep telling everyone, do not fall for their political tricks. That committee is a waste of time.
It is.
They need to just go, give us our sovereign wealth fund. There are countries who have already done this. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are countries that have already done it. Give us the sovereign wealth fund, similar to what they have, except we want to be paid a check every single year, and we know it can be done. All right, and so that is what needs to happen, nothing else. If these guys aren't willing to do it, vote all of them out. It's simple. I don't trust the committee, and I don't trust these politicians. Enough is enough.
Amen, my brother.
I absolutely agree. Everyone that's listening tonight, I think we have been very open and very clear when it comes to what is really going on. We're in a season where it's no time for politics. What it should be is it is a season to advance the people of the Bahamas. And that's what we should be uniting and focus on. And We don't need no long out, drawn out process anymore. I do believe that the committee is a waste of time too. And I think I can talk for our team that we believe that action needs to take place now. We believe that the framework of what needs to be put into place so that the Bahamian people can benefit very soon, very quickly, and I'll say now, to just express the urgency. That needs to happen now. We need to see the framework put in place now. And we have to agitate from a united standpoint. The people's voice must be heard. That's why when you see for the last several weeks, I think it's like 2 months, Bahamas Evolution Team Sovereign Wealth, they've been demonstrating. And let this be clear. They are doing the whole process to have a demonstration the right way. But let it be known that in the last demonstration which took place Wednesday, there was a shift in how the government officials dealt with the demonstration. We should all be concerned about that, because if there's one fundamental right that every Bahamian has, is the right for their voices to be heard in their own country. And especially when you do it in the prescribed manner, when we talk about getting together and demonstrating. This is what changed our country for Bahamians. We can go back in history and prove it. And we have to now be ready to continue to demonstrate. In fact, the people's voices now has to be heard outside of Parliament, so that the system that is evolved in Parliament will start listening to the people. And that's only going to happen when we unite together, work together, support this movement. And not only support it individually, but get your family involved. Let the children see what you're fighting for, and help them to understand that if you don't fight now for your future, you could lose your future. If you don't fight now, others will come in who have different philosophies and put the Bahamian people in greater enslavement. We don't want that to happen in our country. It's time for the Bahamian people to be empowered with the resources in their country, because they are the inheritors of these group of family of islands. I don't know if there's anyone. I think basically the questions that those were the main questions we just shared. There's a lot of comments that are on the chat, hundreds of comments. All of these comments are in support of what is being shared here. There's been some comments concerning oil. I think there is a general concern that if aragonite is so valuable, we should be very concerned about oil exploration. That is something that we need to discuss, I guess, in a public forum, and for people to understand. We have to make a decision. We got natural resources, and we see the world is shifting towards alternative energy. Should we pursue oil and gas? These are some questions we must ask among ourselves and determine from the people what direction we should go in. But this has been an amazing time tonight. We commend.
Pastor,
Yes.
may I interject?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I know. Mr. Bain wanted to ask me another question. I don't know if I finished answer, if you all heard me, because
Yes, we did.
the Wi-Fi just dropped.
Yeah, we did hear you. Um,
That's it. I was finished. I was finished.
You're finished?
Brother Vaughn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can say this. I think every one of us has seen this. We have a champion in Parliament. That's Ron Miller. We got another champion. We got Frederick McAlpine, Pastor McAlpine. We need to support them.
Yes.
And they may not be in the majority when it comes to the members of Parliament in Parliament, but I can assure you of this.
Thank God.
When you stand for a righteous cause, and that righteous cause is the people of the Bahamas, some will catch on and some will be lost.
Mhm.
But always remember, there's an election coming. And you need to really be thinking on who will represent you. And I'm going to say this, don't look at no parties. Look at who will represent you. Who is willing to stand in the halls of Parliament and are willing to sacrifice their livelihood in order to fight for the Bahamian people. That's who you should look at voting for.
Amen.
And so again, I just want to thank each and every one of you. I don't know, Kirk, if you have anything further you want to say at this time. Kirk?
Not really. I just think tonight was a wonderful night. Again, you know, my focus has always been and will always be the workers in this country. Of course, I wanted really to mention also with all of the mining and the dredging that is going on in the Hawksbill Creek.
Yeah.
Let us not forget the many families whose lives have been disrupted as a result of their lovely homes being destroyed as relates to homes cracking and breaking, you know, and being structurally destroyed. You know, there were groups in Grand Bahama who were agitating for those things, especially persons in the eastern end of 8 Mile Rock, the Pitters Point, Hunters, Louisiana, these areas, Hawksbill, all of these areas where this mining is taking place. We got to be concerned about the effect on our ecosystem. We got to be concerned about what's going on in the Hawksbill Creek as it relates to disasters, hurricanes, how this dredging, you know, is impacting this island. You know, every storm that passed over Grand Bahama now, we have major flooding in the North Bahama, Flinders Point, Hunters, all of the areas, all of the surrounding areas to the Hawksbill Creek that is being dredged out 75 feet and deeper, you know, making ocean in the middle of the land. You know, not only should we be concerned about the amount of monies that we are losing. Not only should we be concerned about the resources, the natural resources that we are losing, but what is happening to the normal Bahamian man and woman whose lives are being disrupted on this island as a result of all of that dredging and mining in the Hawksbill Creek. So we have a lot of problems in Grand Bahama. We need to take a stand. We need to be prepared to hit the streets. Sometimes the streets, Pastor, the road is the only court that we have to seek justice. And so we have to be prepared to join the coalition, to join the groups and hit the streets and demonstrate for our rights in this country. And so I want to end with that.
Let me just, it's just as a part of what you said, I'll respond to. And it's bothered me for a long time. And there were times in House of Assembly, I wanted to say some real uncomfortable things with regarding what is happening in Grand Bahama. There were times I was very close to it. There's no way, absolutely no way, people in Grand Bahama should be sleeping on the beach, should be sleeping in their vehicles.
Yes,
that's correct.
Having to leave that island, seeking refuge elsewhere in and out of this country. That should never be happening in Grand Bahama. Now,
Never.
Mr. Bain is the legal mind here. A class action lawsuit has has to come to bear with what is happening in Grand Bahama, what they have done to the dredging, to those canals, and how they have literally destroyed. And they're the cause for this floodings in Grand Bahama.
Absolutely.
We totally agree. In fact, we'll announce it here that one of our upcoming town meetings is going to be on the environment of Grand Bahama. We have been very concerned as a coalition concerning the environmental issues on this island. And I'm going to say this, and thank you, Vaughn Miller. You've actually brought it out in this setting. We have an environmental hazard in Grand Bahama, and they are in many different forms. And that's why we, in our upcoming, one of our upcoming town meetings, we will be addressing the environment. But I think to cap tonight, it is clear. It is time to take action, not action in a week or in a month. You got to take action now. And the voices of the people have to be continually heard. Nothing can help to steer the decision of any government when they see united people letting their voices be heard. They want us to be divided. They want this movement to fall apart. It will not fall apart. It's going to get stronger. And everyone that is listening here today, you can be a part of this movement. We have champions that are at the front line fighting for our natural resources, fighting for the Sovereign Wealth Fund. We need to support them in whatever arena we need to do it. When there's a demonstration called in Nassau, led by Lincoln Bain, rally behind it. Get your group behind it. Join in, partner. And that's going to be the key. We have our various groups with our various passions and focus and emphasis. But what more important emphasis is there than the people of our country? We need to unite together like never before. And we need to press forward and don't slacken up, actually intensify. And when confrontation happens, we still press forward, because that's the only way we're going to have victory in this movement. I believe we're going to be successful. The timing of it will be determined by us. The stronger we unite together, the stronger and quicker will we see the manifestation of the vision that we have for natural resources for our country. I want to thank all that have presented here tonight. I want to say special thank you to Bishop Delton Fernanda for his comments earlier. I also want to thank Pastor Conrad Jones, who had to go to another meeting, and he let us know that he had to go. And a special thank you to Lincoln Bain for being a catalyst to bring about the change when it comes to natural resources and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And our champion in Parliament, Vaughn Miller. We thank God for you. He has placed you there for this time. And we are going to continue to pray for you, which we have been. And by the way, I might as well let you know, Pastor Vaughn Miller is a prayer warrior. He has a huge prayer meeting that takes place every Sunday, virtual, and it's huge. And he demonstrates what he preaches. And I believe that God has empowered you for this time and this season. In fact, I believe God has empowered all of you. And, you know, I thank God for Kirk Russell, who continues to work with us. We work together We are passionate about what we do in the Coalition of Concerned Citizens, and we continue to press forward. So listen out. We will be doing our own press conferences concerning areas of natural resources on Grand Bahama. So continue to pray for us as we move forward, because we're fighting for the people of this island also. And a special thank you to the administrator of this webinar tonight. We are so grateful for Sasha Lee Johnson. She's all the way in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, managing this webinar for us. And we thank God for her. She's going on vacation, needed vacation on the weekend. So we praying that after all the work she did for us, that God will just bless her with the best vacation she's ever had. And,
absolutely.
And she comes back refreshed so she can help us again.
Absolutely.
So we are so
Hey,
grateful.
Pastor, let me just say,
Yes.
Kudos to Brother Bain, to Brother Russell, to you and your wife. And let me say, man, I've seen sellouts in the pulpit. I've seen sellouts in trade unionism. I've seen sellouts in parliament. We've seen them in all walks of life. It's a small community, and people are quick to call you a sellout. We have to remain focused.
Yes.
And we have to remain steadfast in this fight.
Yes.
And maintain this conviction for what we believe. And it cannot be, we have to be like horses, put blinders on.
Yes.
And keep looking forward and pressing forward. And I believe at the end of it, we will achieve, by God's grace and God's favor, what is best for the Bahamian people if we work together. I firmly believe that.
Yes.
Yes. Well, we're at the end of our virtual town meeting. And I believe, Pastor Vaughn, I'm going to ask you to close out in prayer. You are a prayer warrior. And so I'm going to ask you to close us out in prayer as we end this town meeting tonight.
Certainly. Our God and Father, Yahweh Elohim, we come in the name of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Christ. And we come thanking you for this night, thanking you for the hosts, thanking you for the participants, thanking you for all of those who've joined us. And Father, it's for one common good, and that's to elevate your people, to elevate us as a nation. And we know that it's righteousness that exalts a nation. And Father, that's why we are in this, for the right reasons. And we're in this, that our people, the people of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, will get what they deserve. And we pray for your protection. We pray for your continued favor and for your blessings. And Father, give us ideas. Give us ideas. Visit us in dreams. Visit us in visions, and deposit ideas in our minds to help to elevate and to advance our cause. And Father, as we fight to represent you and your kingdom here on earth, be with us now as we separate one from another. Help us to remain unified. And Father, never out of your presence. Continue to cover, shield, protect, and keep us. Get honor, glory, and praise from our lives. In the name of your Son, we thank and praise you. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. God bless each and every one of you. And may the Spirit of the Lord truly impact each of your lives. And we believe that God is going to manifest in the affairs of our country. God bless you tonight. We love you all. Take care.
Good night.
Take care. March on, Bahama.
Good night, everybody.
Forward, put onward together.
Yes.
Yes.
March on, Bahama.
Yeah.